Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to America once again and we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So out of the two breweries involved in this one, it's only the home brewery that's featured on the channel before, and if memory serves me correctly, this will be my third, maybe fourth review involving them, but they're best known for their different kinds of IPAs, particularly the West Coasters, but the away brewery is one that is completely new to me. They're from the opposite side of the country. Both of these breweries, incidentally, from very, very well respected beer areas, if we can call it that. But these guys started out really doing lots of different saisons and built a very, very good reputation for that. And they're also very well known for their New England hazy IPAs these days as well. So definitely cool to be able to feature these guys here on the channel at quite an early point in their history. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one that was very kindly given to me by my good friend Ben and his wife Fanny, so big thank you to those guys for making this review possible. But it's a style that I know the home brewery can do very, very well, one that I've heard the away brewery can also do very, very well, so I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. So needless to say, I'm really looking forward to trying this one. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to head to the state of California on the west coast. We're going to go down to the southern part of the state to San Diego, and to be specific, we're going to go to the North Park area. So that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful North Park Beer Company. This one is called Shadow Puppet. It comes in at 10% ABV. This one is a New England Hazy, Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and it's brewed in collaboration with Freak Folk Beer, who are from Waterbury Village in Vermont in New England over on the American East Coast. So yeah, two breweries from opposite ends of the country, but both from places with very, very good beer heritages, I guess we can say. So yeah, this should be really cool. Once again, a massive shout out to Ben and Fanny for making this review possible. This is one of the beers that they brought back for me from their trip over to San Diego a couple of weeks back. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from North Park Beer Company, and my future reviews that hopefully I can do from Freak Folk Beer. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned before, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the American playlist along with a number of other things, and that's being added to very regularly, of course, because we do get a good selection of American beers here in Hong Kong, which I'm very happy about. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very good things or very interesting things as well on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's crack on then and get started with our brewery histories. We'll start with North Park Beer Company in this case then, since they are the home brewery. So North Park Beer Company are based in the North Park area of San Diego in California on the American West Coast, and this company was founded back in 2016, and the main man behind it is Kelsey McNair. So Kelsey has a background in game design, and he moved to California to work in the video game design industry, if we can call it that, or game development industry, I guess would be the other way to say it. But he soon fell in love with North Park, which was well known as being a beer haven, and he was also a long-time home brewer as well. He started home brewing back in 2004 and operated out of his garage, but at this point he already had the North Park Beer Company name, and his hop foo became one of the most highly decorated homebrews in the US. That is, of course, a West Coast IPA. But after garnering massive recognition for his home brewing, Kelsey and his wife Amanda started to focus on taking their love of beer to the commercial stage. So over the years they battled to raise capital to fund the brewery, and they eventually opened their doors to the public in June of 2016. So the premises is a large space on University Avenue, and it was formerly home to a kickboxing gym called Untappd, and they've got an on-site tap room and kitchen there, with the brewery on one side of the seating space and the bar on the other. But the brewery is still relatively small. These guys are really quite small in comparison to some of the other San Diego brewers, of course, but they produce around 2,500 US barrels of beer per year, which translates to about 415,000 litres. That was the figure from 2022. It may well have upscaled since then. But in June of 2022, they announced that they would open a second tap room in Bankers Hill, which has 2,000 square feet of floor space, and this opened just a few months later and boasts 24 taps. Over the years, of course, they've continued to develop new recipes and release new beers, and as of October 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 470 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And like I mentioned earlier, these guys are best known for their different kinds of West Coast IPAs, but they have been doing a good few hazies in recent times as well. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about North Park Beer Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and talk about the Vermont side of things with Freak Folk Beer. So we're basically going diagonally right across the continental US for this one. But Freak Folk Beer are based in Waterbury Village in Vermont, in the northern part of the state, and it's a bit to the kind of east of Burlington as well, which obviously is known as a very good beer city. But the company was founded back in 2018 by Ryan Miller and Lillian McNamara, and both of these guys had quite a lot of experience as professional brewers. So Lillian is originally from Westchester, New York, and she previously worked at Magic Hat in South Burlington, Otter Creek in Middleburg, and Hop and Moose in Rutland, and prior to this she'd also been working in the hop fields of Oregon. Ryan, on the other hand, comes from Bennington in Vermont, and he worked in breweries in Pittsburgh about a decade before opening Freak Folk Beer, but then he went to Washington State to open Structures Brewing in 2015, and then a few years later he returned east and worked in breweries in Boston, Connecticut and Philadelphia before moving to Middlebury to work for a kombucha company called Aqua Vitae. But apparently the two met through mutual friends at a cabin party, and they formed a bond over brewing, and then later they became a couple. But they started brewing Freak Folk Beer using 400 square feet of space at Queen City Brewery in Burlington, where Lillian was the head brewer at the time, and the idea that they had was to produce mixed fermentation beers aged in oak barrels, and they started to sell their beers exclusively at special events. But the name Freak Folk Beer was chosen for the project as a result of Ryan's musical taste. There was a few acts named in the article that I read, but none of them that I recognise. But Freak Folk Beer is the name taken from Ryan's taste in music, if you like. But their progress in the early days was unfortunately interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and this made these kind of gatherings, exclusive gatherings where they were selling their beer, pretty difficult, almost impossible. So this prompted them to speed up the creation of their own tap room. So they chose Waterbury for it because of its strong food and beer heritage, and they both loved the town as well, so it was just ideal for them. But they found their space and they opened it in February of 2022. But over the years, Freak Folk Beer have become very well known for their saisons, but in more recent years they've been producing a lot of hazy IPAs as well. And as of October 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 140 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. So hopefully we can try a few of their own beers on the channel at some point in the future. I do need to get back over to New England at some point pretty soon as well. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Freak Folk Beer for the moment. If you want to learn more about those guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So as I mentioned to you earlier on, this one is a New England England triple IPA coming in at 10% ABV, and this one's hopped with Citra, Nelson Sauvin, and Racal, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Citra we know very well, 14% alpha acid, American hop. It's going to give you that big sort of juicy mango type quality with a bit of peach and a bit of lemon lime. In a New England IPA, Nelson Sauvin is of course your classic New Zealand hop, 16% alpha acid, and it's going to give you that big kind of white, green, grapey sort of note. Gooseberry is another good way to describe it, I guess we could say. But then Racal is another New Zealand hop, and Racal is quite an interesting one because you don't get too much yield from it. It's not that mildew resistant, if you like, but it's about 6 or 7% alpha acid, and it gives you a lovely sort of pineapple-y and kind of passion fruity note from what I remember. But yeah, I discovered Racal in New Zealand back in about 2015 and absolutely loved it. So quite cool to see that the New Zealand hops are kind of spreading in popularity among the American breweries. But yeah, that's all the kind of technical stuff you really need to know about the beer. There you can see the artwork on this one, and there is the shadow puppet here. Looks a little bit like a dragon actually, which is kind of cool. But yeah, plain silver top on the can there. This one incidentally is 473 milliliters, which is one American pint. You can see the Freak Folk beer sort of swirl, if we can call it that, on the side too, and then you've got the North Park Beer Company symbol underneath that. But yeah, really nicely presented can, this one. I'll just let you have a little look at that as well. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. So yeah, 10% New England triple IPA. If I can get my finger under the thing. There we go, managed to pop it. Sometimes they just don't want to pop up. So let's get some of this out into the glass then and see what it's all about. So like I mentioned earlier, North Park Beer Company do some very good hazies. We've had one or two of those on the channel already, but they are better known for being one of the more recent additions to the beer scene that focus on West Coast IPAs, which is quite nice of course. But yeah, this one, you know, two very good IPA breweries behind this beer, so it should be pretty damn good. So before the head disappears on this one, you can see that it poured with about a 3/4 finger of quite a soapy, but I would say kind of cream coloured head there. I'll just put that up to the camera so you can see the bubbles on it there. So kind of medium sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, and you can see that it just gets a little bit more soapy the further up the head that you go. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. So yeah, that head is going to fade away to just be a thinner, more foamy layer of course, but in terms of appearance this beer is pretty much as you would expect from a New England hazy. I would describe it as being like a very kind of bright mango juice colour. I always like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what they remind me of. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised and thus you get a darker colour beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that with different kinds of IPAs. Now, in terms of the level of haziness in this one, it's kind of around the level that you would expect of a New England triple IPA in all honesty. But remember, the level of haziness in these beers depends on oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use, and that can vary from brewery to brewery and even, you know, beer to beer. There's not really a kind of set rule about that. Little bits of visible carbonation in this one, one or two bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass of course, but overall this one looks pretty nice, and you know, as I say, pretty much what you would expect from the New England IPA style, generally speaking, from pale ale all the way up to quintuple IPAs we're getting these days. But yeah, haze looks good. If we shine the light through it, yeah, pretty opaque, but not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that I've come across, but still has that good little bit of opacity to it. So yeah, I don't think we really need to say much more about the appearance of this one. Let's go on and have a little chat about the aroma then before we taste the beer. So let's do that. I'm really looking forward to this one, as I said. Oh, that smells nice. But you know, the Citra Nelson Sauvin thing is classic in there, but the Racal just adds that little bit more soft, complex juiciness to it. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together in this beer is really, really nice. But yeah, it smells good. It does smell good. Yeah, so it gives you everything you'd want from the style. You've got that nice kind of creamy malty backbone to it, lovely juicy fruits, and then a nice kind of bright green component. So yeah, it's good stuff. So as I've often said in my New England reviews, for me there are 6 elements to think about with these beers when it comes to the malty and the yeasty side of things. So you've got your kind of rye leaning grainy side of things and your kind of farmhousey yeasty type character. Those 2 elements are a little bit more common in the New England brewed New England IPAs, but as the style's evolved, it's kind of leaned more toward the 4 other ingredient kind of domains, if you like, which are the kind of wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, the barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. For me, this beer's actually, I'm getting quite a little bit of the oatiness out of this one. It actually comes across as really quite smooth and creamy. You can smell a little bit of the kind of barley malt side of things, and it's also got just a little touch of that sweetness there. But for me, this one, it's leaning more toward that oaty and barley malt part of the spectrum, I would say. You do get a little bit of wheat in the back of the nose, but you have to remember as well that wheat from different places smells a little bit different. European wheat, for example, is a bit more bitey. North American wheat's a bit more smooth. European oats are a bit more creamy. American oats are a little, or North American oats, I should say, are a little bit more kind of porridgey in my experience. So yeah, for me, this one more oaty, I would say, and more kind of barley malty, but still a lovely smelling beer, this one. Let's just break it down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer for me, it's got a nice little bit of kind of fresh white bready bread crust, and I do really like how that goes together. So yeah, lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. Little elements of cracker, of course, which you'll very often find with this style. So yeah, lovely little bit of cracker in there. You know, the bread crust comes above that, like a fresh kind of white bread hedgehog roll type thing. So there's a good little bit of that in this one. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there. Hedgehog roll, as I said. You've got a little bit of sweeter brown bread in there. Lots of white bread, of course, like fluffy and again slightly sweet white bread. Always found American malts are a little bit sweeter than European malts, right enough. But yeah, so you've got this lovely kind of sweet and wet bready character coming out of this beer. But yeah, you have yeah, there's some really nice, I would say, yeah, there's a really nice little bit of more dense white bready character to this one, like a sort of wheaty white bread. You get a little bit of the bitiness in the back of the nose, but yeah, really smooth and dense wheaty white bread out of this one. But like I said, the malty side of this beer for me has a lot of oaty character to it, and the oats are quite interesting in a New England IPA because generally speaking, the creamier the oats are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. A very rough measure of the freshness of a New England IPA. But with this beer, this one I have had a couple of weeks because I needed to write the notes for Freak Folk beer. I've just been very, very busy recently. But yeah, this one is still pretty damn fresh. You get a little bit of dryness out of the oats, but mainly it's still quite creamy. And you can smell a lovely little touch of like biscuit out of this one. There's a wee bit of like Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch, and also that wee bit of McVitie's Digestive Biscuit. I'm also getting a little hint of kind of Skittle out of this one as well, which is usually an indicator that there's been a little bit of brew sugar added into the beer, which is often a technique they use with these higher ABV New England hazies. So you can smell that little bit of Skittle character coming out of this one, and I think it's usually a product of how that sugar interacts with one of the yeasts, and there's a particular yeast that does it actually. But yeah, anyway, the yeasty side of this beer at the back of the nose, it's mainly kind of white bready, but a little bit of cracker and kind of character in there, and as I say, a little bit of that Skittle type note. But then yeah, the rest of it is all to do with the hops. So let's focus on that hoppy side of things with this beer then. But yeah, the green component is lovely and kind of soft and very, very juicy. So yeah, the way it goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, Good little bit. There's a little touch of earthiness in there, but yeah, mainly it's kind of big and floral and quite nice and grassy. But remember, with your IPAs, there are 3 types of hoppings. You've got early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker aroma. You've got dry hopping, late edition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. Gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma. And then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma, of course. West Coast IPAs tend to use all 3 types of hopping, which is why they have that deeper, danker sort of aroma to them, whereas New England IPAs rely on late edition and dry hopping, which is why the green component is brighter and they're a bit more kind of soft and juicy in a sense. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer is quite nice, and the green component is kind of wet and leafy almost, I would say. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, it's kind of typical if you know Citra and Nelson Sauvin, and the Riwaka, of course, is bringing out some of the tropical, the Racal, sorry, not Riwaka, the Racal is bringing out more of the kind of tropical notes in this one. So for me, lots of juicy mango in this one, like a lot of juicy mango. There's definitely a little touch of the slightly sharper peach above that, but yeah, big juicy mango for me for the most part. Lots of apricot and pineapple for sure. I think there's a wee bit of passion fruit in there, like a softer passion fruit, but juicy mango, lots of pineapple and apricot, as I say. And then at the front of the nose, it's a lot to do with, there's a wee touch of lime in there from the Citra as well. But yeah, you're getting a lot of that kind of gooseberry, white, green, grapey note from the Nelson Sauvin in this one. But all in all, the aroma of this beer is really, really nice. So as I always say, take a little bit of time just to enjoy that before you actually get stuck into the beer. But yeah, I think it's about time for us to try this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Shadow Puppet, a 10% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Citra, Nelson Sauvin and Racal, brewed by North Park Beer Company in North Park, San Diego, California, in collaboration with the name's gone right out of my head now. What's it? Freak Folk Beer, that's it. That's terrible. Brewed in collaboration with Freak Folk Beer from Waterbury, Vermont, over in New England in the northeastern US. Let's get stuck into this then and see what it's all about. Slàinte, skål, and cheers. Oh yeah. Had a few beers from North Park Beer Company, and they've always been pretty damn good. But yeah, this one is lovely. You can see a little bit of the sediment just coming out of this one there as well. So it's even hazier now that we've just got the last little bit of it into the glass. But yeah, just look at that. You can see it's just got that little bit more opaque than it was before. Let's have a wee look at the nose again. Pretty much the same. Oh well, that's helpful. Knock a little bit of it out, but let's have a wee second sip of this one then. Yeah, that's pretty damn good. I'm just going to pause a little second and wipe that up. And we're back. Just wanted to wipe it up because it actually fell on a book that I had down here. We don't want those to go bad. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful beer, this one. I really have to say that about it. Having put the latter part of it in, you do get a little touch more kind of yeastiness out of the beer at the back of the palate as well. But otherwise, the flavour profile is pretty much the same as before, just a bit thicker and almost creamier, if you like. So yeah, everything you'd expect from a New England hazy IPA in this one. So let's just do as we always do. We'll break the flavour down and describe it for you that wee bit more in depth. We'll start in the middle third of the palate, as we always do. So yeah, the backbone of the beer for me, middle third of the palate, you can feel there's that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. as you move further forward on that middle third of the palate, you get that really nice kind of slightly woody character coming out of the beer. So yeah, nice little bit of slight woodiness in there, the fresh white bready bread crust. On top of that, there's a good little bit of like Jacob's cream cracker as well, and then you start to get all of the kind of bready notes out of it. So the first layer above that, you've got this kind of wholemeal brown bready character coming out of the beer, and I will say that in comparison with the aroma and what you would expect from the flavour based on the aroma, the bread does have a wee bit more dryness and a wee bit more kind of graininess to it, which is quite interesting. So yeah, the graininess out of this beer, you've got that kind of brown, you've got that nice kind of brown bready character in the base. Then above that, the brown bread actually shows you a little bit of sweetness into the aftertaste, but then yeah, above that you get the white bready layer, which has a wee bit of graininess to it and a little bit of sweetness as well. And then above that, you get the wheaty character coming out of it too. So yeah, the wheaty character in this one, you've got this really dense, you've got this really dense wheaty white bready character sitting above that. So yeah, the way that that goes together is quite nice as well. The wheat in this one, it really shows you what I say about North American wheat, that it has that lovely kind of smoothness to it. That's very obvious in this particular beer. So yeah. So for me, above the wheat, you start to get the oaty side of this beer. And I will say, in honesty, I think it might just be the fact that the American oats are a bit more porridgey, but it's not quite as obviously oaty in the flavour as it was in the aroma, in all honesty. But yeah, as you go down the middle line of the centre of your palate there, you do get that oaty creaminess, and as you move out toward the edges of the palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of drier oaty character to it. But yeah, in the dead centre of your palate, there's a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy butterscotchy sort of thing. So yeah, you can feel that in the middle of your palate there. That is of course the alcohol with the beer, but then yes, surrounding that you've got a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of vibe. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one is really, really nice. So yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate. The only other thing I would add is that you get a wee bit of a grainy, crackery and sort of skittly flavour the further back that you go down that middle line of your palate. But let's go to the back third of your palate then. I've often said that the back third of your palate and the middle third of your palate will have very similar flavours to them, just different intensities. But do remember that sweeter flavours will come out further forward on the palate, and more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. But yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, kind of brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, then the more wheaty, dense white bread on the top. The base of that back third of your palate is of course a kind of bread crusty character. Then you've got the cracker, the brown bready layer sits on top of that, which is a little bit lighter, drier, but also more airy. Then above that you've got the white bready layer from the barley malts, which is again a bit lighter, drier, and more airy. Then at the top of that you've got the more dense, wheaty white bready character coming out of this one too, which is really nice. So yeah, above all of that you start to get the yeasty side of the beer, and for me the yeasty side of this one has a bit of a kind of wheaty bitiness to it, but also a kind of grainy, more farmhousey bread. So in the dead centre of it you can feel that more dense and grainy brown bready character, and as you move further out from that it becomes a little bit more like a kind of farmhousey sort of bread. And then yeah, the very edge of that yeasty character is a little bit more bread crusty. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me is definitely a little bit more kind of farmhousey and kind of rusticy bready, and definitely, yeah, back third of your palate you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, let's see, I do like how all of that pieces together in this one. Let's go to the hoppy side of things then. So yeah, green component then. So the back corners of the palate, you do get a nice little bit of earthiness out of this one there. As you move further forward, it's a little bit woody, very slightly herbal, and the woodiness actually spreads a little bit further forward on the sides of the palate there. But as you reach the front corners of your tongue, it's definitely more kind of floral and aromatic. Then round the front curve of your palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. But the green component in this beer is very, very soft. So let's focus on the front third of your palate then, and the way that that goes together. So yeah, yeah, for me, the malty side of the front third of the palate again is quite nice. That border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get that bready build up in there, the kind of brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, then the more wheaty bitey sort of thing on top, and then yeah, the base of that front third of your palate is, yeah, that kind of white bready bread crust, the cracker once again, the brown bread, the white bread, and you get more of the dense wheat bread on this one. And it's got a little bit of almost zip to it, but I don't get too much of the oat on that front third of your palate. But then yeah, above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a little look at the fruity side of things with this one then. So yeah, fruity side of the beer for me is pretty much in line with what you would expect if you know these hops. So at the back of that front third of your palate, in that oily bubble, there's definitely a wee bit of a kind of grapefruity character in there. So yeah, the nice kind of grapefruity notes there. As you move further forward from that, you get a little bit of sharpness from the peach on the top, but then yeah, you get lots of juicy mango, and then underneath there's like a soft passion fruit, and as you move further forward from that, it kind of develops into being a more kind of apricot-y type character. So yeah, grapefruit, peach, mango, passion fruit, apricot, and then as you move right into the middle of the third of your palate, that front third of your palate, you get more of a kind of pineapple-y note. And then yeah, as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, it's all about the kind of white, green, grapey characters from the Nelson Sauvignon, and again, that's really, really nice in this one. So yeah, maybe just a little touch of a lemon limey character behind the very front tip of your tongue too, but other than that, I don't think we need to say anything more about the fruity side of the beer. That covers everything we need to say about the flavour. So all in all, really, really nice beer, this one. So gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, let's round off then with just a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So yeah. Yeah, tasting section for me proved to be really nice. Mouthfeel wise with beer, it's quite an interesting mouthfeel to it. It feels a little bit drier into the aftertaste, but it's got a lovely softness to it and a wee touch of wetness. So I would describe this beer as being kind of top end of mid-bodied. It's not the thickest and kind of creamiest of New England triples that I've come across, but it's still really nice. So yeah, IBU wise, I think this one's maybe about 50-ish IBUs, could be 60, but I think 50 is about right for this one. And you do want that wee bit more bitterness out of the New Englands when you go up the ABV, just to balance it out. But yeah, maybe about 50 IBUs. The malt has a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a wee bit of kind of creaminess, smoothness, and sweetness on top. And then yeah, you've got that lovely kind of fruity character coming out of this one as well. But all in all, really, really nice. Really, really nice take on the New England triple IPA style, and once again, not surprised by North Park, and it's a very good introduction to Freak Folk beer as well. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This one was the Shadow Puppet, a 10% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from North Park Beer Company in North Park, San Diego, California, in collaboration with Freak Folk Beer from Waterbury, Vermont, New England. Both of whom come from the US, of course. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from North Park and from Freak Folk Beer. Hopefully we can try some of Freak Folk's own beers going forward, and we can return to North Park at some point as well. But yeah, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out the brewery's social medias, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very soon. Till then, slàinte, skål, and cheers. Ciao just now.